Hey guys, welcome back. BDCKR here. We're back with Season 8, Episode 52 of our weekly Q&A videos. I say videos, but you can actually listen to this on most major podcasting platforms by checking out the links in the description of the video. Or if you're on the podcast, you can also watch this on YouTube, I guess, if you want to. But you probably don't if you've made the jump.
Well, the benefit of YouTube is you get to watch gameplay for the current Phantom Zone.
Yeah, and the disadvantage of YouTube is that it's just something to watch in the background, and you could probably do something else in the background instead.
That's true.
Like play Injustice, maybe.
Yeah.
Make your own gameplay content in the background.
That's it.
So
before we get into the new questions, I know we spent the entire last episode on the stuff about the pandemic and vaccines. There's actually a few other things I realized I'd forgotten to mention I thought were important points.
So
I'll try to be really quick about it. One is that when people who are stridently anti-vax make a big deal about how it's going to change your DNA, one, it's wrong, it doesn't. But two, there's plenty more than just the two mRNA vaccines. The Johnson & Johnson one is not mRNA, AstraZeneca is not mRNA. They have their own sort of issues, but I think it's the focusing on that one particular thing and making a big deal about how it's novel is flawed. Just because we've got so much experience with it first, and that if it really is an issue of old technology, you can use, and it's not even old, but if your issue is with that type of technology, go ahead. Use a different one.
Yeah.
I think the interesting thing will be when we get the flu numbers. Right now, I think the most up-to-date flu numbers are from the beginning of the pandemic. And what I've seen reports are very interesting. Those the organizations that monitor the different flu strains are following 4 different strains that were expected to be big last flu season. And uniformly, they were all lower, and out of the 4, 2 have become undetectable. So what's interesting is that all the sort of mitigation strategies that have been used, right? Masking, outside of vaccines, I mean, masking, distancing, staying inside, limiting contacts, and higher risk behaviors, they would be good for any respiratory virus, not just SARS, but also or SARS-CoV, but also for the flu virus. And the fact that it's made such a big difference, I think what'll be really interesting is when we see how much lower the final flu numbers are, we'll get a really good sense of how effective those mitigation factors are. And for all the people who've been screaming about no mask, freedom, whatever, I think we'll actually have real information, and it's looking pretty favorable right now for preliminary data.
Yeah, although I don't think that's going to convince anybody, because I think anybody who's not convinced is already probably not looking at the data that much.
Well, absolutely. Yeah, right. For all the people saying I'm doing my own research, the best meme I've seen was, the scientists doing research. You picture somebody in lab, and then anti-vaccine people doing research, and somebody sitting on the toilet looking on their phone. I think that's pretty funny. And one other thing that's interesting too. So if you're going to have an issue, a good faith issue with the vaccines, you're going to be talking myocarditis. And I think the most reassuring thing about that is that myocarditis is not all one uniform thing. It used to be that myocarditis typically is very much a very serious inflammation of the heart.
Yeah.
And that's because of how it's diagnosed. Typically, you're not testing a whole bunch of people that you're not sure about for myocarditis. And for the people who were getting it, they typically got very sick, and it was pretty serious. The difference now is because they're looking for this now, you have to be really careful about when you've got a study that talks about the incidence of myocarditis after both the vaccine and sickness. Yeah. Because some of them have been doing it based on a cardiac enzyme that goes up. It can go up for a lot of things. In fact, if you're using only that for your criteria for myocarditis, then there have been studies that have shown that because the CK goes up really high in kids who are playing soccer, you could make the case that, well, they're all getting myocarditis. And what it really means is that whereas before we base it on sort of a clinical situation and then using CK as a corroborating kind of information.
Symptoms first.
Right.
And then when the symptoms already are indicating something really serious, that's when you test for it.
Right. And the qualifier too is all those sentinel cases where kids were getting myocarditis. The point that they're missing is that every single one of them, even if they're admitted to hospital, resolved without going to ICU, were asymptomatic by the time a lot of the studies had been published. So the difference, I guess, is that these cases, even if they met the original criteria, were mild enough that there wasn't really any consequence. And here's the thing, too. You've got to keep in mind, you're comparing it against the case of, you're not comparing against perfectly healthy kids in a normal situation who are not getting a vaccine. What you're comparing it to is perfectly healthy kids in the middle of a pandemic. Yeah. So even if their chance of getting infected is low, even if their chance of getting myocarditis is low, the chance with the vaccine is probably at least an order of magnitude lower. And the kind of consequence they have is way less severe. Mm-hmm. So anyways, it's just a few points putting things into context. That's all.
Yeah. So there we go. Moving on from that, our first question of this week comes from Hoshi127, and they say, "Wait, are you actually father and son? I figured an older cousin or something. Also, I am from the USA. Much love to you both with 2 arms, 2 legs, and 1 head." And then in brackets, you may be asking yourself, how does he know we fit that description? Don't question it.
Yeah, oh, and I guess it ties into the next one because we'd asked where people were coming from. Right?
Yeah, so from the USA.
And there's another one right after.
By Louis Lemus.
Yeah.
And they say, "Hey BDCKR, I'm from the States to answer your question. I have 2 questions. I play the arcade version of this game with some friends, and Killing Joke Joker is OP because he gives his team full supers, which does full damage. The arcade version has no gears or external customization like Star Labs, and no usage of Containment Suit Doomsday to survive nuke-based teams, but who else is good for surviving nukes? The second question is who is good to team and gear setup with Injustice 1 Scorpion? I used a Quake Engine on Scorpion, Red Lantern with defensive gear, Sengoku helmet, and Batman Returns Catwoman for extra damage over time. It's a blood-themed team, but I'm not sure how to modify the team so that I can use Scorpion effectively since he is one of my favorite characters."
Right.
So this is an interesting question.
Yeah.
Especially because, I mean, we haven't played the arcade version. I don't even know how it works. I guess from the description it sounds like you can pick 3 characters as a setup.
It sounds like actually it's multiplayer. Right? No gear, no customization.
Well, I don't think actually that's fair to say as an assumption, because I think the arcade version obviously won't have you have permanent upgrades that persist over multiple games, so why would you have those?
That was before multiplayer. But that's what I'm saying, it's before...
Yeah, but it could have the characters introduced after multiplayer and just strip those mechanics because it doesn't make sense for the arcade.
No, I agree with you. That's actually what I'm saying. But the thing is, they also have these... A way if you wanted to actually have upgrades would be have the cards. So they give out cards, right? They actually have physical cards that come with the arcade game.
Yeah.
And you could use those potentially as, well, you've played enough to earn the cards. You scan them, and that'll give you sort of your progress or the upgrades that you would have earned from previous playing.
Yeah, I think at that point they just have you'd probably be in front of the machine for too long. If people were coming in with cards and upgrading and stuff, I think you lose a lot of what makes an arcade fighting game what it is.
What's interesting though is it really highlights how important supers used to be. I think we talked about this last time, right? Supers used to be unblockable. They used to do full damage, and because there was no other way to get power that fast, somebody who could do it like Killing Joke Joker was really powerful. Like a great teammate to have. Batgirl, still really good, but Killing Joke Joker used to be great because the fact that you could get up to super, like the amount of fighting that you'd have to do to get 3 bars of power for 2 of your characters, that's a long drawn out fight already. You're going to have a lot of trouble. Who else is good for surviving nukes? I mean, Blackest Night team with Hawkgirl, it gives the revives. Raven you'd think would be good, but the problem is if you actually do enough damage to eliminate that would bypass her full health. So what you need to do to trigger Raven's passive is to have her health land somewhere between 0 and 10%. As long as it hits that, you swap health. So as long as you bypass that, she's done. So she's not actually great for nukes. An earlier strategy that was effective for Raven to make sure she doesn't get knocked out would be to give her defensive gear or a revive from the 4th World Gear set. Who else is good for surviving nukes? Without gear, I really can't think of anybody else. It really is the Blackest Night team and Containment Doomsday.
Yeah.
Pickle Suit Doomsday. I love that. Injustice 1 Scorpion.
Okay, so I'm looking up now, and you actually do... The cards that you win is characters that you can play in future rounds.
Ah!
So if you don't have any cards, you just get a random bronze team. And
Right.
so you can earn higher tier cards. And if you play 1v1, I think each person gets a card, no matter what.
So then, is there a scanning option? Like, how did they know
you scan them.
Right.
So I don't know exactly the exact mechanics, but that's anyway. That's interesting.
So it'd be like validating your parking ticket at one of those automated parking tellers.
Yeah.
Okay. I think if you're gonna have the problem now is the way the game goes, you don't face them every time, but if you happen to face a Blackest Night Flash and you've got an all damage over time team, you're screwed. Because you won't be doing enough actually, Blackest Night Flash has a passive that limits the effectiveness of basics and specials against him. Right? Sometimes he can I can't remember what the mechanic is called, but when you're doing a combo, you'll freeze. And you'll freeze enough that he can do a full combo on you. And if you are focused on specials, and they're all damage over time, he's building power faster. I remember there was a fight, I was facing Blackest Night Flash, and I'd forgotten. And I was, I'd had the bleed from Aquaman plus Quake Engine. So he was building up power like crazy, and the only way to survive was to try to get my specials in before he did when he had 3 full bars of power. And the fact that he was healing at the same time made it really difficult. I think let's face it, Scorpion, I don't know that there's anything particularly special about any of his specials or his basics, because he's slow. The swipe combos on the Scorpions, I think, as a whole, all of the skins are slow. His main feature is damage over time. So he could be your specialist. Then, in order to protect yourself against, it's not even the likelihood, but the possibility of Blackest Night Flash team, is that you'll need somebody for your basics, like to do basic attacks. And this comes back to sort of the, the archetype of the ideal team.
Yeah.
You need somebody who's a tank, so that, you can tag out Scorpion and let them bleed out, and Scorpion isn't vulnerable or exposed to a lot of potential damage. It's a shame because the damage over time team used to be great, but I think the ultimate problem is you might like Scorpion, but if you have a specialist on your team who's a damage over time specialist, it doesn't do enough damage fast enough to make it worthwhile. That's the biggest problem. I think that's, for all the things that Injustice did right when they were making changes, one of the things that they did badly was to make a full damage over team not as viable anymore.
It's true, yeah. Because that was never like a best in show team.
Right.
So to sort of undercut their ability to perform was just unfortunate, because it was a fun team that became not viable instead of, like a best team having like a counter now. And especially when, I think the main problem really is that when they introduce Tantu Totem, there's no meaningful way of countering it, just because they either hit you or they get their power back. The only thing, paradoxically almost, the only thing that would make Tantu Totem not viable anymore is if there was something, there is stuff that reduces damage generally, but the only thing that really would make Tantu Totem not viable is if there was something that would punish special use while still letting some damage filter through. Harder.
Well, you know what? I'll tell you what. To me, the main counter, the only person I don't like to face with my Tantu Totem, Rebirth Raven. Because she'll steal it. Just tagging in, she'll steal all that power.
That's true.
And then I have to get my butt out of there. No, but you're absolutely right. It was unbalancing, but unbalancing for everything, because you're facing Tantu Totem too. It's not like one of those things where it's all one-sided. Because it's not like, I was going to say Batman Ninja Catwoman, but even then, the main counter is the LexCorp gear to reverse your power drain.
Yeah.
As long as you survive it, actually. So, I like Tantu Totem because it's fun to play. Yeah. I also think it's not entirely unfair. I think the shame is the same way that for a while, tag-in teams were being punished by, what are those things? Tag-in hazards? What are...
Entry hazards.
Entry hazards. And then that was sort of solved by making entry tag-ins that much more valuable, it's sort of balanced out.
Yeah.
I unfortunately, Lewis, I think focusing a team around Scorpion because you like him, and that's cool. I think it's going to mean that you're going to have more difficult fights.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A little bit of a challenge for you.
Yeah.
One thing that occurs to me, which is funny, just thinking about the Injustice arcade game, is it's weird that for a game that has a console version that's a more developed fighter, that the arcade game is a port of the mobile game. Isn't that strange?
Oh, yeah, that's... Yeah, I hadn't thought about it like that, and I guess I never made the connection, because you're absolutely right. To me, the arcade used to be the premium thing.
Yeah.
And that all the home consoles were ports of, and sometimes pale imitations of, the arcade game.
Yeah. So it's weird, because there's cards and collection in it, and unlocking characters, so they gave it like mobile progression.
Yeah. But
they stripped some of the things out. But the game mechanics, I mean, there's like way more combos and stuff with the actual full game.
Yeah.
So it's just that's an interesting consideration that is a little strange to me. I guess it makes more sense with the way that stats and stuff work for balance.
Yeah.
If they're doing card collecting, they want you to collect more. And the other thing that's interesting is, I guess, because the console version, you can play with other people anyways. The arcade version is the only way to play sort of a similar thing to the mobile game, but with other people, because you can do 2 players at once, right? You can only do fake online versus AI in the mobile game. So it's a version of the mobile that actually lets you it's just weird. It's a weird mix of stuff. And apparently there's more stats in the arcade version where they take into account power, defense, speed, and health.
Yeah, okay.
So defense and health are separate, and speed is separate too, which makes more sense to me.
Oh, absolutely, because speed is pivotal in this game. Like, it's not even something that's not in the game. It's there. They even have passives that affect it.
Yeah, it's just not...
it's not explicit.
It's not explicit, yeah. And there's no number associated with it. There's no numerical value.
Right. And defense is interesting, because to me, that's almost like having gear. It's like a manifestation of the gear as a way to reduce the damage per hit.
Yeah. We don't spend a lot of time in arcades, but if we did...
I'd be looking for this.
I would be... This seems like something I would want to play. Just even to have the cards, I think it's kind of fun.
I'd be tempted.
Yeah.
For sure. Maybe not at $1 a game, but 50 cents?
I don't know how much it is. It's probably more than $1 a game.
You think so?
Well, I don't know. I have a hard time knowing what the price of things are.
Way back when, I used to... games used to be a quarter each, and a premium game was 50 cents, or a premium place was 50 cents. And then they started coming up with these games that had all these accessories. So I think, was it Time Cop? It was the one where you step on a pedal to go up and down and reload, or just duck down.
Yeah.
And there was like...
Was it stepping on a pedal to duck down and then shooting off screen to reload?
Might have been. And it was like a few bucks a game, and I thought that was expensive, but I could understand when it was such a big display and all that extra equipment and all the space.
Yeah, the reason why I think this is probably more expensive is because there's cards. There's actual like content associated with it, but it's hard to say because on one hand the cards are there so that you. I mean, I bet it's actually variable in price. I bet that's like most arcade games. I bet you can pick how much you want it to cost. But
like Subway, it's like certain places the Subway pricing is different depending where in the city you are.
Well, that's like one of the measures of GDP is the price of a Big Mac, right?
I'm thinking within like the city, like even in this one place in the city that they price things at the same chain, even if among different franchises. Because let's say you've got one at the airport, they price it higher. You've got one downtown, they price it higher.
Yeah.
And then there's areas in the city where it's priced cheaper because I guess the traffic is lower and you have less of a captive audience.
You're really a sit and duck at airports, though.
Yes.
There's some weird... I mean, the food there isn't all bad.
No, it's not all bad. It's just expensive. Yeah. I remember one time I was at an airport, I bought an orange and I opened up, it was black inside.
Oh my god.
So I went back to return it, exchange it for... And they didn't give me any hassle, but it's just nasty that it was just sitting there.
You had to open up an orange. Like,
and then your fingernails are all dug into the blackness, right?
Yeah.
Like, it's nasty.
That's pretty gross. When you say they didn't give you any hassle, you should have been giving them hassle if they went in one direction. Yeah, I'm sure it's not the fault of the person who works there.
But I'm just, like, maybe it's some bad experiences when I was younger. It's the idea that they'll look at you and think you faked it, right? Like it's all those urban myths where people find rat parts in like a bottle of pop or something.
You think that you brought to the airport.
Yeah.
You brought a rotten orange.
Smuggled the rotten orange.
You brought a rotten orange from home. You brought it through all the airport scanners. In customs, everyone at every stage of the process, because you're not supposed to bring that type of stuff on flights.
You're not.
So I think actually the airport is the best place for that to happen. I think in other places, I mean, you go to like the grocery store,
right,
and you take it home, and then you come back, and they go, this orange could have come from anywhere. But when you're at the airport, you're stuck in a place where you just went through security clearance.
I know.
And they've taken everything off you. And if you've had any oranges, the only way that it would have gotten past is if it was believably shown up as not an orange in all the scanners and everything.
Well, that's what I'm saying. It wasn't entirely rational.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, if that had occurred to me, I would have been a little bit more indignant. But,
True.
You're at the mercy of, again, it feels like you're really at their mercy in general.
Yeah.
And I think the airport's designed that way because if you could check in, if the check-in process weren't so long and drawn out and unpredictable, you could hang around outside for as long as you could, enjoy your food, enjoy whatever, and then check in. But they make you check in way ahead of time because if they're... Oh, I still remember there was one time, you might have been too young to remember this, that we were going on a trip and we planned poorly, and because the flight had been at 7 o'clock, they'd say get there 2 hours, but we thought, what's the chance that they're going to be open at 5 o'clock? And they were. And we were late. And then, when they make the announcement, is anybody on whatever flight still in line? And we were, we're looking around at everybody else. This time it was us.
Yeah.
They rushed us through, and then they stopped me right at the...
Oh, to like recheck your bags.
At the check my bag. Well, the bags are checked. This was like right at the ramp where you go onto the plane, right after you given your boarding pass.
Yeah.
And they stopped me and had to frisk me again and check me over to make sure I didn't have anything, I guess, bad.
Yeah.
So I'm just saying it was it's a weird experience and it's a weird setup, but it's created specifically to, I guess, squeeze as much out of you as possible while you're on the other side of security.
Yeah, and to make people feel safe without making them that much safer, actually.
Right, security theater. We've talked about that before, too. Yeah.
Now, what's terrible about that orange story is that if that happens to you, your natural response is to be really upset. And it feels like there should be somebody responsible.
Yes.
It feels you kind of want an outlet for that. And part of the problem is there's no individual person who's working at that store who's responsible for it.
Right.
So my reaction hearing that is like, oh, that's terrible. And your initial sort of response to make yourself feel better is to go like, what'd you guys do? Like, because it's you guys as a group, and who you is not very clear.
Right.
But you know that the appropriate person to yell at is not the minimum wage worker. Because if it's black, it's been there for what? Days, weeks,
it's been there
a
for
month,
a while.
whatever.
Yeah.
And so the most you could blame any one person is a fractional responsibility. And if you couldn't tell the orange was bad, they couldn't tell the orange was bad.
Right, exactly.
Right? Nobody had any information. So it's hard to be...
So I guess the advantage of being a Karen is really that you don't care. That you have this urge to let it out, and you just do.
Yeah. And you maybe feel a little bit better about it, and everybody else around you feels a lot worse about it.
I was just grossed out. Like, it was just nasty.
There's,
you try to eat. There's so many other unhealthy choices. I was trying to do something that was good for me, and then instead of having a healthy snack, I've got my black mold underneath my fingernails.
You discovered new life. That's pretty bad.
Yeah.
I'm thinking now about weird customer service interactions, and there was one time that I tried to order a farmer's wrap at a Tim Hortons.
Okay.
And
what's a farmer's wrap? Which one's that?
You can Google
is that like a breakfast style kind of thing? Farmer's breakfast?
So
farmer's breakfast?
It's either sausage or bacon.
Okay.
And it comes with cheese. It comes with some Tim Hortons specialty sausage. I think it's like a mayo or aioli base. It's like a spicy, like tangy, whatever. So it comes with cheese. It comes with egg. It comes with a hash brown. They break a hash brown in half and put it on top of itself.
Where's the other half? They put both halves in, but just stack them. Okay, alright, got it.
And then...
That's like taking bagel and slicing it in half and then cutting that in half so you can have half sandwich, but only use the top or the bottom, like that. Yeah, okay, got it.
Yeah, and then it comes with either sausage or bacon, which you order it. And so I was at this one place, it was like a Tim Hortons that was like a kiosk as like part of another building.
Right.
And I ordered a farmer's wrap, and the woman goes off and makes it, and then gives it to me, and I look in it,
Yeah.
and it's totally wrong. There's lettuce, there's tomato. I mean, she knows it's sausage or bacon, so sausage and bacon has made it in there. But the ingredients are nothing that's in a farmer's wrap.
Okay, but tomato and lettuce seems like they'd be premium kind of filling, so that you're getting extra instead. Like you're getting the wrong thing, but
I'm not getting any of the right things.
You're not getting what you want.
It's not like she added lettuce and tomato. Right. And so it was a farmer's wrap combo, so it came with a hash brown and a drink. Right. And I was like, this is
hash brown separate from the sandwich.
Yeah, separate from the sandwich.
Oh, so you get, that's funny. It's like getting a sandwich with fries in it and fries on the side too.
Yeah.
Okay.
But so
got it.
What happened was, I was like, hey, this isn't what's in a farmer's wrap. And she's like, oh, okay, I'm sorry, I don't actually know what's in a farmer's wrap. Nobody ever taught me. So she hadn't been trained on how to make a farmer's wrap. She's like, no one's ever ordered one before from here. So she hadn't made
she was hoping to wing it.
Yes! So she hadn't made a farmer's wrap before.
Right.
She didn't know how to make it, so she just went into the back. Or not the back, it was just like another area, but I wasn't paying attention, right? Like I wasn't watching her like a hawk, because normally you order your Tim Hortons and then, you know...
Well, you're not the supervisor, right?
Yeah,
That's not your job. You're the customer, not the supervisor.
But so then, so she had no clue, she'd never made one before.
Right.
And she just... But she didn't say that, she didn't tell me. She just guessed at what she thought was probably in a farmer's wrap and then hoped for the best. And then, I don't know, I guess hoping that it would either be right or I wouldn't say anything. And so then I said, oh, this actually isn't right. And she said, oh, okay. And then she goes back. And now I'm watching her, right? Because I want to see what she's doing.
Yeah.
And she doesn't go, like, get, like, a booklet out or anything. She just cranes her neck back from the
look at
building
the picture?
to look at the picture.
Right.
And she's putting stuff in.
She's reverse engineering the farmer's wrap.
She's
what she's doing.
She's trying to do it from the picture. And so I'm looking at her. And I realize she's still not doing everything. So then I'm telling her what's in it. And so I'm like, okay, it's this, and then it's this, and then it's this. And then I'm like, and then there's a hash brown. And she's like, no, I already gave you the hash brown. And I'm like, no, there's a hash brown in the farmer's wrap. And
I see, I would have had the same issue. If I didn't know what a farmer's wrap was, I would think, you're getting it on the side already. What do you mean you're getting it jammed in the sandwich?
Hash brown? And I'm like, no, like it's in the sandwich. You have to like break it in half and like put it like up the length of it. She's like, I already gave you the hash brown. And I'm like, no. So it was just this whole back and forth. And it was really frustrating. So the other thing is that we had to wait a really long time. There was like one or two people ahead of me and my friend. And like one or two orders, and those took like 15 minutes. She was the only person working there.
Right.
It was slow. She clearly had not been trained appropriately. Right. She didn't know how to make everything. She was probably pretty new still. If I was her first farmer's wrap, maybe I'm an unrepresentative sample, but among my friends, farmer's wraps are one of the more popular orders.
Right.
So you know, first farmer's wrap feels like pretty new probably.
Right.
And so I waited this really long time, and then I waited a pretty long time for my farmer's wrap, and then it was totally wrong. And then she went back and just looked at the picture, which did not give her enough information to assemble a farmer's wrap. And then I was telling her how to do it, and then she was fighting me on the ingredients of the farmer's wrap.
Right.
So it was a tough experience. But I was like, who is to blame here? Because I don't blame her.
Tim Hortons. Well, listen, when you're a franchise, it's totally different than if it's a restaurant. If it's a restaurant, the owner's responsibility, or the manager's, to orient each person so they can do their job properly.
Yeah.
When it's a franchise, what are you paying the franchise fee for? Mm-hmm. You're paying so that you can have the standardized advertising, you get the reputation, the name of it. So why can't they supply, like... they should, bare bones, they should have like a menu list, right? This is what's in this sandwich. This is what it is. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's just, oh my god. I would have been so hungry.
Yeah,
I would have been so hangry.
It was a hard experience, and I did eventually end up getting my farmer's wrap, and I got it with all the ingredients that were supposed to be in it. She let me have the hash brown. After a certain, when she was just going along with it, I was like, to be fair for her too. I could just tell her anything at this point, right? She's just relying on a stranger to tell her exactly what to put in the food that he's going to be eating. Like, I have a vested stake in this. I could just be like, yeah, and then there's 4 more pieces of bacon, and then, you know, whatever. So I understand that, you know, confusion. But so that was that was it. And we don't have nearly enough time. We're keeping it relatively tight this week. I have another very good fast food
I want to hear
story
it. I want to hear it.
that I think we'll save for next week maybe, because it's the one that you have heard that happened recently.
Okay.
I think it's well worth telling.
Yeah, it's a great story. All right.
But we don't have time, so that's next week. It'll be probably at least 15 minutes of that. So stay tuned. But I think it's a valuable effort, or it's worth sharing anyways.
Right.
So I'll do maybe one or two quick right here at the end. We have a question from Mo Guns, and Mo Guns says, how do I see the challenge mode schedule?
And you don't, not from us, or I guess if it is from us. So here's the thing. One thing we've always struggled with is that when we first started this channel, it felt too much like double dipping to have a Patreon too, because we were getting advertising revenue. It felt like for the effort we were putting in, we were making way more than we deserved. Mm-hmm. And it felt too much, exactly that, double dipping. And then at the point where our ad revenue bottomed out completely, then we started a Patreon. We have some people who are supporting us. They actually don't take advantage of the benefits nearly as much. Like, so, last word, we would let people record themselves saying Komoda in video form, and we put it as a bumper on the end of our video. Yeah. Nobody's taken advantage of it. All the people that, over the time that have been our supporters, our patrons.
Just wanted to toss us some cash.
Right.
It's quite nice.
Yeah. And so, what are the other tiers?
There's the Your Message Here tier. iProfit took some advantage of that. People can send little messages at the end of videos if you want, and we'll read them out as part of almost like your sort of shout out, right?
Right. So we struggled with trying to add some sort of value to people who are supporting us. Because like you said, I know that they are doing it because they just want to support us, and that's cool. But we wanted to do something that would really have some sort of added value, more than just, I guess, the clout of being our supporters and our patrons. So one of the things is that we do some of the data that we track, including challenges, including multiplayer stuff. We make that available on a spreadsheet for our patrons. Mm-hmm. And we've been tracking that for a few years now. Yeah. And it's been a while since we've done this, but we used to, when we were going away, sometimes we would release stuff a little bit early for our patrons.
Yeah, so we would do that sort of content. I think when we were launching the podcast, we did the exclusive episode early, like as soon as it was ready.
Right,
and
that's
stuff
true.
Like that.
Right.
Yeah. So, we try to every once in a while throw something. And so part of the thing for the tracking it is it's a huge amount of work, it's a huge amount of data. And the sort of one advantage to us is that it's something that makes people want to watch our videos.
Right.
Because they can go, I don't know what it is, right? And it would be a lot of work for any one other person to do it. So that's kind of it's.
I mean, it's doable too. If you wanted to do it, you can do it yourself.
It's maybe a tiny bit selfish, but we're putting in work to make our content more valuable. And if we post it, then our content's not actually any more valuable than opening the app and checking around a little bit and doing that work for yourself. So that's why we sort of keep it locked in. But we figure if you're a patron, if you're paying us at all, then you're giving us way more money than you ever could by watching our videos anyway. Right. So we can do you that solid and let you skip it if you want.
Right. I mean, we're averaging now, the average money that we're making per view has gone up a little bit. Even as our total viewership has dropped enough so that our revenue has dropped, like it totally bottomed out. We're making, I think, on average, about $2 to $3 per 1,000 views.
Yeah, which is pretty good.
It is. So each view is worth about 0.002 cents. Is that right? Am I doing it right?
Approximately.
1,000? Yeah. 1,000. Yep. So, so everybody who's been supporting us Patreon has more than made up for whatever they would have watched. Yeah. Disproportionately. So we are absolutely grateful to them.
Mm-hmm. So there we go. And that brings us, I think, to a good stopping point, and also a part where we're going to be thanking the people who support us. So a shout out to Eliza Beanman Caton. She did a painting of Beanman. This shout out was brought to you by Beanman. Google him and take a gander. Take a look at Beanman, yeah. We'd also like to give a huge thank you to all the lovely folks who support us on Patreon. So
that would be Victor Gomez, Consul Peasant, and Edwoon at the top tier last word. Sinemac and Mohammed Albshaiti at the Your Message Here tier. Shawn, Farrell, Daniel Simonson, Aaron Maule, Michael DeVries, Brandon C., Irvin Ruiz, and Eddydoo at the credited level. And Chris Wolf, Scarlet Danny, Awesome Gamer 2 for 1, Pavu RS, Gavin Malott, and Isfar E. at the gratitude level.
There you go. Here's a picture of Bean Man for you.
Oh.
This is Bean Man.
Oh.
There you go. Everybody Google Bean Man. And thank you so much for your support, and thanks so much to all of you for watching. We'll see you next time.
Komoda.